Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abi.
That's me.
That's you.
And you. You guys, to celebrate the Tree of Life audiobook coming out, Justin moved a pile of rocks.
Why are you telling that on this podcast?
Because I thought it was so freaking cute. One of the things that we did
On the day on the day of the launch when we had that, we ended up going out to the lake, and it happened to be with a group of friends. It was really nice, and me and my friend Marcus jumped in the water, and there was this giant pile of rocks under the water that someone had piled when the water wasn't up that high.
Yeah, that's true.
And I was like, let's keep swimming down, grabbing rocks, and move the entire pile from here to over there. And he was like, I have no interest in doing this, but to love you, I'll totally do it. And
that's hysterical.
I felt like a kid, you know, in pools where they drop the little rings at the bottom, and then kids have to go grab them and pick them up.
And then they just bring them back to you. It's like underwater fetch.
That's exactly what it was. But there was like giant boulders. I think I picked up like a 120-pound boulder and was like, I'm moving it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I didn't feel more accomplished really at the end of it, but I felt like delightful at the end, and I'm pretty sure I tapped into my childlike wonder. And I'm like, wow, kids can get lost doing the dumbest things.
But you know what? It was great. And then you looked up, and there was an apple tree right above where you did your rock pile, and it was like a cute little wink from the universe. Mm-hmm. Yep. So that was delightful. That has nothing to do with today.
No. What are we doing today?
We're talking about hope.
You know, you may have ruined the whole podcast.
I gave away the punchline.
No, it's not that you gave away the punchline. It's that you're singing the word hope was
so
really bad. Again, you're not allowed to sing on the podcast.
In case you're just joining us, me and Justin enjoy sarcasm, and it is delightful to us.
Playful banter with one another.
Because I know he loves my off-key singing.
Nope, not a truth. Not a truth.
I know he loves when I sing normal sentences all day long.
Yep, that's her denial if she believes that. Yep.
It's not true. You love sing-songing our life.
I do love sing-songing our life.
On a regular basis, it'll be like, I'm going to put this basil in the chicken.
Yeah.
And then you would respond with...
Yeah, putting the basil in the chicken. I'm not playing your games, you rogue.
Back.
Listen here. So today we're talking about hope, because the world is in desperate need of hope, and no more of Abby singing. And so we want to give you a dose of that hope by talking about what's really going on, validating some circumstances, and talking about how like the dose of hope that we need right now from what we're seeing in the world is something that we need in all parts of our life. Like there's aspects of how we as a global community are approaching our experience here that is universal to how we approach so many of our experiences in our own lives.
Yeah.
If pandemic disappears tomorrow, we're still having the same approach that's causing some of us the same problems.
Absolutely. So I want to kind of talk about where we're at, because what I have begun to see is I can see lots of people, there's like a new wave of pain coming up right now, it feels like. And I think there's a couple of reasons. One of those is I don't think people in March thought we would still be doing this.
Well, I think that we freshly have just gone back to school. We're in about the time where everyone's beginning the journey back to school, and they're realizing there's not schools for a lot of their children.
This was my second point. Don't steal it.
No, this is the first point. Go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, so all of a sudden, it literally, like when
it's a milestone marker.
Yeah, it's a milestone marker. So when you're like, we didn't think we'd be here, we're aware that we didn't get where we thought we'd get because a major thing that should be normalized now isn't normalized.
Yeah, all the parents thought their kids would go back to school after a week, and then 2 weeks, and then now they're going to be out for until the summer.
And some of them, and then some of them may actually have gotten back into school, but now they're all wearing masks, or it's something crazy, and there's
something crazy,
something crazily different from normal. It's not our normal at all.
Mm-hmm. And what I found is that humans have a really high capacity to kind of lock things down inside of themselves.
Yeah.
Where they're like, okay, it's not going to be normal for a little bit. I'm just going to compartmentalize all my emotions and push through. because I can see like it will be normal again and then I'll be okay. But when you can't see when it will be normal again, you don't have the capacity to lock all your emotions down. It feels wildly out of control when you're not sure when will this circumstance end.
Absolutely.
This is a lot like, here, guys, I have so much hope to offer you because I just went through this process with my body.
Yes.
Yeah, I did, which was I thought for sure I would be fine by 36. I thought for sure I'd be fine by January. I thought for sure I'd be fine by. So I have lived in this world before the pandemic. I think people who have chronic sickness understand this idea.
Right. Of mile markers in your head.
Mile markers. Yes.
Like, hey, when I get to this mile marker,
then I'm going to be okay. So I did this for years where I would push through something. I'd be like, it's going to be really hard, but in February, there's going to be relief. Or, but I have a doctor's appointment at this thing. And then
I can just get to this, we'll be fine.
And so it's literally the concept of, I am not going to grieve and I'm actually not fully going to live. I'm just going to survive until this date. But then when the date comes and goes, it is devastating. And I see a lot of people this happens to outside of sickness and corona. It's just expectations.
Right.
When you believe there's going to be relief at a certain point or joy at a certain point, it could be the thing of like being a kid and knowing your dad's going to pick you up on Saturday and you look forward to it all week. And then Saturday comes and goes. And then you just feel devastated because you'd been waiting so much for that moment.
And what that actually creates is, especially when we're talking enormous amounts of time on these life issues that get bigger and have more weight to them, like the weight of the consequences or what it could cost you in life if this doesn't work out in certain ways. But what it does is it starts creating a delay. It creates a delay in the pain process. So instead of going, hey, today's a rough day and I'm sad and I'm a little overwhelmed about my experience I'm currently having, whether it's my job loss, a marriage falling apart, the sickness, what happens is we say, oh, but all I have to do is wait till this and it's going to be fine. Once I get here, it'll be fine. And so we literally take those emotions and we compact them, compartmentalize them, and they start to build on one another.
Yes, they build steam.
And then what happens is you have an extreme pendulum swing. So all of a sudden people are like, oh, I'm doing okay, it's fine, instead of like purging here and there along the way. And then once that date comes or that moment that they thought was going to relieve it happens and it doesn't, devastation. It's like an accumulation, of all the disappointment, all the pain, all the overwhelming feelings hits at once. And you just feel like your life is completely hopeless, out of control, nothing's going to change. And it becomes a spiral.
Right. Which I had, this is what would happen for me with sickness is I'd get to the place where I was like, oh, by next summer, I'll be better. Oh, by next like New Year, I'll be better. Like you just kind of have an imagination. And I used the imagination as like a fantasy to help me cope with what the present was. But whenever I would hit that mile marker, then I would feel all of the pain I hadn't been grieving, all of the loss that had been going on. And that sounds fun to people, except it's horrible because it's like, I'm fine. I want to die.
Yeah. I am not fine.
Yes. Like, I can't make it through this one more day. I can't do this. And people have these huge emotions like, I can't handle this pandemic anymore. Everything's going to fall apart. And this is, I'm seeing this because most people are having coping mechanisms show up in this pandemic because we don't know what we don't know. And so, when people got news of if their kid could go to school or not and what the school would look like for their kids, I could see so many people having a big emotion because not only have we hit another mile marker, but now it's how long will it be this way?
Yeah.
How long will life be like this? How long do I have to homeschool my kids? How long will the world not be normal? And now we get into future tripping. which creates so
Absolutely.
much hopelessness.
It rips you completely out of the present moment of, okay, I don't know. I'm not going to try and estimate how long this situation is going to be. I'm just going to figure out what I can do today.
Yeah, because what will happen is people, and I'm guilty of this. I'm really working on this in this season, actually. But the guilt is, but I can only do this for like another month. Or I only, like, you're measuring and you're like thinking, and then you're feeling pain. Like, I can't do this for more than a month. I can't live this way for more than 2 months. I can't keep living this way for more than 6 months. I can't keep managing and wrestling through all of these things. I can't figure it all out. And we put into the future, we imagine the pain of the future, and we imagine the whole of the pain of the future instead of breaking it down day by day.
Right.
And so now you're feeling dread. I can't homeschool my kids for a whole year. I can't.
Totally.
Like, I can't stay at home from work and work at home for a whole nother year. Those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the goal would be learning how to be present, which is stupid hard.
Well, I want to add something to this. It's almost like there's this difficulty in knowing how to accept what is and hold on to the hope for what can be.
Yes.
Like, it's almost like even we'll use your body as the example in your sickness. I have had to progressively learn in the journey as we fought for health for you to go, all right, I accept that there's currently pain and problems that Abby is experiencing.
Yeah.
I have a hope that I allow to have a flame to it inside of me that at some point there'll be a difference.
Yeah.
And maybe that, like for some people, they'll go, yeah, but that day never came.
Yeah.
And then they had to grieve that day never came. But I don't think it's a reason to throw out hope.
Yeah.
Like, it's because again, some people are listening and they had a hope for a loved one and that loved one passed away, or they had a hope for that job and that job actually completely ended, or they had a hope for a home that ended up falling through and everything else. But it's like this idea that my hope isn't also tied to the idea that you're going to fully get healed in this season, or at some point. My hope's also tied to an eternal perspective that at some point in time, regardless of earth or heaven, there's a healing place. And that's again, some people are listening going, I don't have that. I don't have an eternal perspective. I don't have a higher perspective. All I have is the temporal that is earth. And that's fine. You can live in that, but that can create a lot of problems. And, it's not that I'm living in some fantastical world in that sense. I'm just like going, no, I actually believe that there is a fullness of redemption and healing and restoration at some point in time. It just might not look like it's on this earth. And so that's an interesting thing to tie yourself to.
Yes.
And learn how to have that higher view to actually fuel a piece of hope.
Well, and I've seen you do this so well in this season. And I think it'd be good to actually talk about like where you landed with me being sick and in the pandemic, because you have been steady with hope in both areas. So do you want to kind of talk about like how you've postured your heart towards hope in both those places?
Well, again, going back to, I think, the simplicity, I'm not quite sure what you're alluding towards as far as
what do you want me to say, Abby?
What are your observations of how I've done this? I think, again, I stay tethered to today.
Yeah. I see that a lot. Like, you aren't future tripping. You're not like, will she ever? Won't she ever? And you've also come into acceptance of like, I know that there's this thing where you're like, I know she has to go through this season and I know she'll get out.
Right. I think that there's something about accepting suffering as part of the human condition. I don't think suffering is a focal point that should be the thing of like emphasized as, oh, life is all about suffering and then you die. And I think that life is a beautiful amalgamation of both suffering and success, like thriving and coming alive through the suffering, and suffering also being utilized as a gift to us. I don't I don't think that necessarily there's these purposeful inflictions on us, but there's something that can be extracted out of all suffering. And I'm always looking at how can we extract beauty out of suffering, and what can suffering actually produce if we actually dig down into the core of our being and allow ourselves to be open to a transformational process.
Yeah. So you believe like, oh, this suffering is not going to break Abi.
Right.
This suffering can bring healing to her.
I absolutely believe that at some point, in some way, you will be okay, whatever that okay looks like.
Yeah.
And your journey is a very unique one as a human being. I think all of us have a unique human experience. It's not about living on planet Earth in survival mode. It's about going through a unique experience for each individual to liberate something inside of us, to build something inside of us, to reveal something beautiful to us, if we will be willing to posture ourselves from that. There are people who live their entire lives who could listen to this and go, none of that's true what he's saying. Yeah, but that's because you were so stubborn, so damn stubborn in your journey that you were absolutely unwilling to humble yourself and go, I surrender. I don't know what this is going to look like. When I say surrender, I don't mean give up. I mean, I surrender my need for control, my need to be stubborn, and I give myself permission to be part of this experience, and I release myself to grow and to change and to evolve through this and to get liberated through this and really choose in. Mm-hmm. And so there's many of you that won't get that because you will not choose in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I've seen you have hope because you're like, no, it's a season. And you will come out. And I remember we have a friend.
Can I add one other thing?
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say that globally, I look at this and I think that there's some terrible tragedies. Don't get me wrong. There are terrible tragedies that are happening in the midst of all of this. I also see a global invitation. Mm-hmm. Like there is a literal open door, global invitation for those who are willing to take it, who go, I take this moment, I'm going to apprehend it. What is it that I can gain from this? And so there, we are on the cusp. They're on the cusp of either people getting radically broken by this entire experience in a negative way because they stayed hard-hearted to the process and allowed their brokenness to drive the season, or they got broken in a healthy, loving way where they got broken free from all of the fear, the insecurity, the self-hatred, the control, all of the stuff that's been driving their life. And it actually, again, liberated them unto a higher place of being and perspective and all of that.
Yeah, I think there's this real beauty in brokenness and in feeling out of control. Like we're all in this place of feeling out of control.
Totally.
There's not one human who's like, I feel completely in control right now. Well, there's probably some.
They are hidden in a jungle somewhere and have not seen social media or anything.
They don't know what's happening.
Did you hear about that one guy who emerged after a month or two? He was away on some form of like a Buddhist sabbatical or some sort of
like with a monk
retreat or something like that. No cell phone, no access to the world.
And they came back 2 months into the pandemic.
Like, what is happening?
Why is toilet paper a big deal? That would be a crazy scenario.
What did I miss? But FOMO. That guy's got major FOMO now.
FOMO, yes.
That's what he got out of that.
But so there's this part of when we go through things that are out of our control, we either grab a hold of control and try to become more in control, or we grab a hold of surrender and get better at surrender. Yeah. And I said this about my body and going through stuff with it too. You can either allow pain and suffering to make you harder or to make you softer. And so I can see, I can tell, and I think my friends would say the same thing, that this last couple year process, I'm way more soft. I can cry much easier. Not that crying is the gauge of softness, because there's
tenderized internally, where you're just very vulnerable and open in a way that was like.
And I'm letting down my guards more, and I'm learning to embrace vulnerability. And I can tell in this season, I feel really vulnerable. There's ways that I can see that my body's getting better and ways that it's not.
Yeah.
It's getting better enough for me to feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
But it's not getting better enough for me to be out of the last season.
Yeah.
So I can tell that there's this feeling, and I think there's a vulnerable feeling for everyone, because lots of people, I was just talking to this person who was doing myofascial release on my hips today. And she was saying that a lot of her friends have quit their jobs in massage because they can't wear masks all day, or they can't do all of the rules. It's very complicated to do. And I was just thinking, there's so many people whose careers have ended, or who lost their jobs. Or I know so many people who are like, should we move? Everybody's recalculating, like, what is the point of my life? What do I want my life to be about? And then everybody's also like, my government's crazy. Where should I live? Everyone in California
is wanting to bail ship.
Yeah. So there is like this vulnerability of the unknown. And I think that's what we're in right now. Everybody is in a moment where there is vulnerability because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know how it's going to be. So we actually, when we feel vulnerable, get to choose if we're going to embrace the beauty of vulnerability and like it, or resist it and fight it. Mm-hmm. And fighting vulnerability means like we feel hopeless, we feel frustrated, we feel like we need to control things. And the opposite is like that surrender to vulnerability of like, even me, I'm like, oh, I am softer right now. I might have more tender emotions. I might have people misunderstand me. I might have whatever those aren't even good at like
I
examples.
think that some people are even part of being vulnerable is letting go of the idea that you have to have a solution.
Yes, that's a much better.
I think would be a good language for it, because there's a lot of people that are right now, you're looking like, what am I going to do for work? What am I going to do for whatever?
What's my life purpose?
Yeah. And for me, when I went through the transition that we had when we first got married, that was a huge thing for me. Is I'm fighting so hard to find solutions. Like, what am I going to do for work? How are we going to make money? And really during that season, as I began to surrender and I began to grab hold of trust and believe that I was loved and taken care of, that there was a good dad, a creator bigger than me that's involved, all of a sudden I found myself in such a place of hope and peace every time I could grab hold of that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't have to find the solution. The solution will find me when it's time. I was scared that if I wasn't ruminating on finding a solution, which is part of our way of control, is like, if I can overwork myself in anxiety trying to find a solution every day, then at least I'm doing my part.
Right.
Because we don't believe that we'll have an aha moment that will lead us in the right timing on what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about passivity. Some people live in denial. Don't look for a solution whatsoever. They literally find a way to bury their head.
Yep. In the sand.
They ostrich themselves real fast. I'm choking on the sand down here.
They're like, what pandemic? I'm fine.
Yeah, there's nothing going on, and that there's denial. But when I'm talking about this type of surrender has stripped back all of denial, and it says, no, I am very well aware that there is a pandemic, or there are losses, or there was stuff happening around me. I am not ignorant of any of it.
Right.
And I am fully available to participate in finding a solution, though I'm not racking myself with anxiety trying to do that when I don't feel a grace inside of me to do it. And so those people, like, as we get to that spot, there's something about settling in and going, all right, so what is today about in this portion of my season? What is it that I can stand up and do? Like we talked about, the grace of the day is practically like, all right, today I'm waking up. I don't know if my job's going to be here today. The people are making cuts, or people have told us that they're going to repossess our house or whatever.
Or I don't know how long I'm homeschooling my kids.
Right.
Or I don't know when I'll get to go see a basketball game again.
Right. Things like that, and going, all right, well, I'm going to trust that the next step, the solution, even you, let me say this, you made the point of people wanting to jump ship on wherever they're living. Oh yeah. Right.
This is like a big moment where everybody's like reevaluating, and some of that's good.
Yeah.
Like we're being shaken out of normal.
Like, okay, what do I want with my life? Yes. Is this a place I want to be? All right, let me wait till I feel a yes inside of myself to make a move on something. Because a lot of times in us trying to manufacture our hope by finding a solution, like if I get a solution, then I can have hope, rather than having hope that there will be a solution in the right timing. So if I'm trying to get hope through a solution, sometimes we can create these solutions that end up being a detriment to where we're at because they were motivated by fear rather than being motivated by a place of peace inside of us that said, I have hope and I just am feeling peace today that we actually need to move.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. I think that there is something that I will say for both me and you is we keep coming back to trust.
Yeah.
And that's because for us, it is that we have a creator that we believe loves us and wants good for us and is actively involved in writing our story. And that belief gets very challenged when pain comes up and when the unknown comes up. It's really easy to let go of that or not believe that. But it's something that I think me and you are purposefully spending time tethering ourselves to.
Yeah.
To remember, actually remembering, no, this is who God has been to us. This is what his faithfulness has been in our life. This is who he is that we've experienced. This is what we can count on for the future.
Dallas Jenkins, who is the director of the TV series or the series, The Chosen, we had him on here a while back, and he was talking about specific monuments that he set up in his journey. And monuments were these moments of faithfulness where he saw God be loving and faithful in something. And in this last season, as he's transitioning through the pandemic, they've had an opportunity for a second season number 2 of The Chosen, to be filmed. But that comes with a whole lot of complications suddenly in this moment because they're like, I don't know where we're going to film this. I don't know how we're going to do it because there's so many rules all over the world. Where do we go for that?
Right.
Certain needs for filming, like certain locations.
That's a different ballgame right now.
It's a whole different ballgame for him. And he literally put out a video about a month or two ago where he's just he's on the farm where they originally shot it. And he's just like, I am at a crossroads. And I'm paraphrasing, but it was I don't know what to do. I'm just being faithful with what's right in front of me, remembering the monuments inside of my life, like this farm was provided and all these things were provided for me. And he's like, I'm just going to keep believing that we're going to move forward and solutions are going to happen. So I watched actually today or yesterday, a video released where he was like, we got this incredible location out of Utah that was literally an entire remake of Jerusalem.
What?
That they said, you're never going to be able to film here because of the pandemic and stuff like that. Maybe at another time in life, but not now. And he was like, I'll share the amazing story at another time because this right here is another monument that I will set up inside of my life for the next major thing that I have to conquer, knowing that there was a faithfulness that provided for this when it was impossible and they said it couldn't be done. It was provided for. When they said we could never make this whole thing in the first place, it was done. And he's like, I keep accumulating my monuments. And this is my point. There are some of you that have a string of historical monuments that you have forgotten about. You have not taken the time to collect those monuments, to go revisit those monuments. And that is what sparks hope, is that when we get reconnected to the monuments inside of our lives that pointed towards us being loved, us being taken care of, things being answered, solutions coming when we needed them. And we, like little kids, easily forget, mom and dad don't care about me. Are they going to take care of me? They literally just gave you food yesterday. I'm pretty sure they'll be here today to take care of you. And there's these historic childhood moments where we do have real losses and we begin to get ourselves in a posture internally where we believe, oh no, it's just like my childhood where it didn't work out. And we have to remember, actually, as we get older, how there are monuments that are available, trying to heal the childhood wounds of our past that you are freshly facing right now. You are all freshly facing, so many of you, your childhood pains. And in order to get past them, we have to look at the monuments in our life.
Well, and it's so interesting because confirmation bias comes in here. So we all have stories of how things worked out for us. And we all have stories of how things fell apart for us.
Totally.
Every single human has both stories.
Absolutely.
We have stories of being in the right place at the right time, meeting the right person. there's providence involved in every single human's life. So it could be like, I had this one teacher who believed in me and who loved English and gave me books to read, and it led me to like, there's so many stories like that. There's also so many stories of like, then my dad abandoned me and never came back and never read me a book again. You know, like we have both things, and typically our lives are filled with them both. Right. At the same time. And I think we're all waiting for that season, this magical fantasy season. When everything falls into place and there's
everything's
no other
good and
issues.
there's no problem.
Yeah. I haven't experienced one of those seasons yet, but it sounds delightful. But the idea is what we actually spend our attention on grows and magnifies for us. Mm-hmm. And so if we're spending our time being like, oh, I'm going to lose everything in this pandemic, like I lost everything here, like my parents lost everything there. Yep. Like our brain's going to collect every spot from our life that it could be similar to, because that's what our brains do to help us survive. And we have to actually be like, no, this isn't the same as this, and it's not the same as this, and it's not the same as this. So I'm like, one of the things I think that has been so helpful for me is in the pandemic, not that this is the pandemic, in 2008, when the economy crashed, we felt like we were supposed to sell everything and travel the U.S. So in this season, as I have had different waves of things that I'm needing to trust for, I like keep going back to, I've been in one of these moments before and it turned out okay. Yeah. I've been in a moment like this before, and eventually there was a new normal that created outside of it. And some of you are like, well, I went through 2008 and lost everything. So that will not be your monument, but there are other monuments in your life. And it takes more energy to look for the monuments of faithfulness, of provision, of things coming together. But as we do that, when we focus on it, it ends up magnifying. This happened in your childhood, where when you started looking at the things that did go well for you, you ended up seeing like there's more love than you knew there was.
Absolutely.
And for me, when I start looking back on faithfulness, this happens a lot. I'll ask group questions and I'll say like, what was one time that life worked in your favor? Yeah. Okay. So that'd be a great question. And then you'll see some people like really struggle with it.
Oh, absolutely.
But then they'll like, as the stories start going around, you kind of break out of your box of what you think that means. And you're like, oh, it could be something little like that, or it could be something. And then you start sharing. And then it's like people have story after story after story that start coming up because it gets brought to your remembrance.
Yeah. I was thinking about a way to put this is really, are you building monuments to hopelessness or monuments to hope? Yeah. And are you visiting the monuments of hopelessness or the monuments of hope? Because like she's saying, you can go, are people who in their confirmation bias will go sit down in front of the monument of hopelessness.
Absolutely.
At this stage of their life and that stage, and that's all they'll be blinded by it.
And it's just a reminder, like you can prove whatever you believe true. Yeah. So if you believe you're going to be okay through this pandemic, you can look back through your life and find evidence for why that's true. You can look back and be like, actually, when my dad left my mom and divorced her, we ended up, we made it. Yeah. Actually, when you can look back and you could see how life worked out for you. Like, oh, it might have been painful, but we did get through that. I think about that all the time. Like I go back to my little kid in my household and I'm like, listen, you make it out of there. Like, yeah, you have some stuff you have to work through, but you're not trapped in that season of life forever. You're never going to be like, I felt trapped and hopeless as a kid because 18 years is a long season.
Yeah, when you're a kid, that's a lot.
It's your whole life. Mm-hmm. But so like now I can look back and be like, hey, you're going to get out. And so I feel that way even about like this season. Like we're going to get out. No season lasts forever. Right. No season like continues on and on and on and on and on for 500 years. Like you study history, you can see it. Nothing stays the same that long. Yep. So you can prove either get skillful at proving hope. Yep. And I just wanted to validate a couple of people. Like if you're feeling that sense of purposelessness.
Use the English language.
Is that a word? Purposelessness?
Are you feeling purposelessness? Yeah, I think it's a word.
If you're feeling purposeless.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're feeling like transition and you can't see where you're going to go and what you want to do, or you can't, like, I know a lot of people are waiting. It almost feels like there's this global silence where people are waiting for the next step in their story.
Yeah.
Everyone I talk to is in this situation where they don't know where to move, where the job is, what direction they're supposed to take. Like, there's an unsettledness, but there isn't a clarity on what the unsettledness is leading you towards. So if that's you, I just want you to know you're not alone. And I do believe there's going to be a season of answers coming.
Yeah.
I do believe that the silence is going to end. I don't know when, but it will end, and you will have answers begin to show up, and you will have that dot, like that process Justin talked about with his book, where it'd be like in the right timing, then, oh, you'll have this right conversation with this person and it will spark this thing with this person. And the patience is learning how to be present.
You can be tormented in this process, okay? You can actually have an unconscious torment that drives you all the way through everything that we're experiencing globally, and just be waiting for the torment to disappear on the other side. Or you can be very plugged into this moment and go, I'm ready to get liberated from the torment inside.
Yeah.
I'm ready to get liberated from my anxiety. I'm ready to get liberated from my negative thinking. Mm-hmm. I'm ready to get liberated from the hopelessness that's been part of my life forever, unless circumstances were perfect.
Yeah.
And like, what is it like that you want to do? Like, there's this invitation. When I was talking earlier about invitations, there's an invitation to become very powerful. Mm-hmm. Powerful is, I am going to redefine how I approach my life, how I do life, how I learn, how I grow, how I develop.
Yeah. And for me, again, this is a lot with surrender. Like, okay, and it's the belief that things are working together for my good. So it is, hey, if all I feel led to today is to have this one conversation with this person, I'm like, someday that conversation will lead to something. Or if I'm just following the breadcrumbs, it's kind of like a continuation. Like in this season, I've surrendered needing to know where I'm going to get and at what time I'll get there.
Yep.
I'm just taking one step at a time, and I have grace for that. Like when I think about my body on a really bad day, I have grace to get through the day. It may not be fun. It's when I start to think, is the whole year going to be like this?
Yep.
How long is it? That is overwhelming.
You go into a surefire spiral.
Yeah. And so if you're at home with your kids and you can homeschool your kids for one day.
Right.
And you only might have the grace for that one day.
Yeah.
And then you might have to cry and yell into your pillow at night and drink a glass of wine. No, I'm just kidding.
Totally.
But you only have, so don't build the whole, how am I going to do this for a year? How am I going to, no, I have grace for today, to live today, and if you're waiting for like, what is the next step? Where do I go from here? Be like, I don't know, but I am being led, and things will reveal themselves.
Yeah. You know, I think of while you're talking, I kept seeing a lot of clients who have come through my office and a lot of, how do I put this? A lot of childhood pain comes up around finances or unstable circumstances.
Oh my
right?
gosh. Money is such a button pusher.
And so a lot of times they'll be like, yeah, if my parents just had money and if they could have got the stable job, everything would have been fine.
They wouldn't have beat me. They wouldn't have gotten divorced. They wouldn't have, yeah.
Right. And I always bring them back to, do you actually think it's about the money and the circumstance, or do you think it's about how they emotionally approached it all? Mm-hmm. Because what if you had parents who had stayed happy and connected and said, you know what, we're going to get through this. Mm-hmm. The kids are going to get fed in one way or shape or form. We're going to find solutions. Mm-hmm. If you had parents that were playful about it and be like, I don't know, we're learning and growing. Mom and dad are making mistakes today, kids. We don't, like, how would you feel about that? And you'd be like, oh. All of them are like, I guess I didn't think of it that way. I didn't imagine a world where actually the fear inside of them was what was driving them. The insecurity, the ego inside of them was what was driving destructive measures. I know one person comes to mind where their dad just became an irate monster during the season of losing his job. And part of it was because his dad felt so insecure about not being able to be the provider. Mom was providing during that time and everything was taken care of. Mm-hmm. But dad became like just crazy because it felt like an attack on his identity that he wasn't the one creating the provision. And I'm like, what would it be like if your dad had actually just been like, this is beautiful, I get to spend time with kids. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's okay if I lose my job. That's not the problem. The problem is how I approach it and how and so that's something that I think listeners need to think about.
Right. Which is, how do I enjoy life now? Because even though it's not what I might have chosen. Exactly.
And in my enjoyment and in my approach to this, I can define even for maybe my friends or my kids, how they experience this entire thing and how they decide to do life moving forward when problematic situations arise.
Yeah. Do I believe this is going to work out? Or do I believe I'm not going to be okay? It's really like the orphan mentality versus like growing up with super involved rich parents. Where, I'm just kidding, like not in real life, but I mean the concept of orphan mentality is nothing's going to work for me unless I do it all myself.
Right.
And like daughter-son mentality is I have an invested parent who is going to help me and we are going to be taken care of.
Yeah, totally.
So one thing I just wanted to mention, we have every time we do a podcast, people are like, you guys are so fun and funny and deep, and I cry and I laugh and I love that. That is what the Tree of Life audiobook is like. It is like getting a special edition of the Connected Life podcast where it is funny and fun and adventurous, but then it is also like heartfelt and deep and it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, it'll make you feel, and it will empower you to choose hope in any circumstance. It's funny that we're doing this episode, but I'm like, no. The book is about what we're saying, learning how to come alive where you're at when circumstances aren't what you would choose, how to engage life, how to engage transformation, how to, instead of becoming hard and empty inside, becoming soft and healed inside. And so you can check that out on audible.com or amazon.com.
Yeah.
And we'd love to have
Tree of Life in my name.
It's a great way to support the podcast.
Yeah, go out and get that. So with that all said,
and also my favorite is reading the reviews. So listen to it and write those awesome 5-star reviews so that I can enjoy reading how you experience the book.
Oh, thanks for saying that, Abs. So with that said, I know that some of you are in a difficult season.
A lot of you.
I will wrap it up with this. To every place where you have felt blinded by the circumstance, overwhelmed, I want to say you are safe. You are safe. You are safe. One of the greatest fears is that we are not safe, and it blinds us and it traps us and it torments us. And right now, I just break torment off of any of you that are listening, that as I speak this, that you'd feel torment just shattering off of your life, where the heaviness, the heavy burden, the weightiness, the hopelessness, that type of torment would just begin to break as you begin to hear that there is hope for your future. There is love for your future. There is abundance for your future, abundance of relationships and life and connection, that this is not your end, that this season is not your end. This difficult circumstance that you're in is not your end. You are going to be okay. You are going to be taken care of. Your life is going to move forward. You will not be trapped forever. This is not a forever thing. I break the lie that this situation is forever, that this way of life, this experience, the pain, the things that you're going through is forever. I break the lie that it's forever. I know for a fact it is not forever. I have gone to the worst places. I have faced actual death in my life and almost died. I have gone through sicknesses. I have gone through hopeless seasons, and they were not forever. And I promise you, as you listen to this, as you hear this, that your experience not only is not forever, but you truly are going to be okay in this process.
We just invite the presence of love and of hope and of truth right now into your story, that you would literally feel love grip your heart.
Yeah.
That you would feel comfort come rush in to wrap around you like a blanket, that you would feel the invitation of a creator saying, I don't want you to have to go through this season alone.
Yeah.
that you would feel the kindness. I just see some of you don't know that God is really kind. And when we're struggling and we're a mess and we're not perfect and we're yelling at our kids and we're failing with our husbands and we don't know what we're doing and we're running around like a chicken with our head cut off, God is looking at us with so much love, so much kindness, so much compassion. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to have everything right. You can be in process. You can be a mess. His goodness is not determined on how perfect you are or how good you do everything.
Yeah. And some of you right now, wherever you're at, maybe you're in the car, maybe you're in the kitchen, maybe you're on a job site, maybe you're sitting in an office space. And I just want you to hear these words. I love you. I love you. There's some of you that this is a season where you're feeling the least lovable, the least connection. And I want to say, I love you. I love you. I love you. And those words transcend Justin's words. Those are a higher love. Those are from a voice that's so much higher. Those come from a place of someone who is a father who intimately and lovingly cares about you. You are not alone. You are not alone. You are not alone. You are not alone. And this is a season where every place where you have felt alone is going to shatter. Not just where you felt alone during this experience, but where you felt alone in your history. That this is an invitational season where the lie that you are alone is being shattered inside of the core of your being. And you are finding yourself. You will find yourself. As you say yes to it, you will find yourself knowing a deeper truth that you are not alone. You are loved. You are chosen. You are taken care of, and you will be okay.
This season is going somewhere. You are not stuck and you're not trapped. And this story just keeps going over. We had a friend who had a nervous breakdown after he was betrayed and went through a huge trauma in his life. And for about 5 years, he was in a nervous breakdown. And he had gotten married. And his wife he'd be like, am I going to be okay? And she'd be like, I don't know when, but I know you're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And she would say it over and over and over again. And he came out of that breakdown and has been super powerful and come back to life. And it's been beautiful to see, but that's literally how he got through it, was just like, tell me, am I going to be okay? And so on behalf of everybody who needs to hear that, you're going to be okay. I don't know when. I don't know how, but you are going to be okay.
Yeah. So everybody, thank you for listening. And if someone else that you know needs a dose of hope, go share it somewhere.
Pass it along.
Review, subscribe, share, let people know, because I know that there's a world in need of hope right now. And it's messages like this and other people who are, sharing similar messages out there that need to get out to the world. So
thanks.
Bye.
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 Bye.